So when we asked our next storyteller what the most ridiculous lie you ever told, he said that near the end of first grade, as my 7th birthday approached, my sweet mother informed me that since I had had parties each of the prior years, not to plan on having a formal birthday party with my friends that spring. Almost immediately, I began inviting my friends, favorite friends, boys and girls, to my birthday party on Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Yes, gifts were appreciated. The word got out. It seems like everyone knew but my mom. Please give a warm welcome to Keith Buswell.
Woo-hoo!
Have you ever used your piggy bank in an emergency? I have. The good news was my lovely wife and I just received our college degrees. We each had good jobs that were starting immediately. We had no debt. We were expecting our first child. The bad news, we only had one car and no money yet. On a beautiful spring Saturday morning, as my wife had to get off to work at a large department store some miles away, the only thing I had to do that day, a high priority, was to get my hair cut, because I had to be prepared for the first day of my new job. I knew that she had kind of run out of time, being pregnant, to be able to get past the morning sickness to get ready to go to work. Knew she didn't have much time left, and I just said to her, just drop me off at the parking lot of the home improvement store and I'll walk up to the barber shop. In our urgency, the one thing we had not considered was the money I may need for a haircut. I said, Tricia, what money do you have? She dug into her purse and pulled out 2 $1 bills. I looked in my wallet. I had 2 $1 bills. I took both of those, put them in my pocket, and I thought, in the desperation, what am I going to do? I remembered I had my square pink piggy bank. I grabbed it and put it in a brown paper lunch bag. Got in the car, and she dropped me off a mile or 2 away, and I walked over into this parking lot and stood by a light pole as I opened up the piggy bank and I started counting out some money. 4 quarters in this pocket. 4 quarters in this pocket. Then, there were a few more quarters, so I put them in the pockets. Then I'm counting dimes and nickels. And it's just all this change going every direction. Well, I just got impatient, and I thought, I surely have enough money to pay for a haircut at this local barber shop. So I started walking. I walked up around the block, around the corner of the shopping center, and I came face to face with Merrill's Chop Shop. And right at the entrance, I walked in, and this was a busy place. On the left-hand side as I walked in, which was the south wall, there were 5 old-time barber chairs and 4 barbers actively cutting hair. On the right side was the north wall, was for the customer patron seating. And there were like 8 chairs and a large sofa that could have 4 people sitting on that at one time. Well, as I came in and I looked, the only spot I had was the far end into the shop on the last little seat on this couch. So I went there. This couch had a high, erect shoulder, arm. And so I took my brown paper bag and I carefully, discreetly put it down over so no one would see it, but it was in a safe place. Well, it didn't take me long as I looked around to determine that Merrill, the very first barber, was the owner and manager of the shop. And I was some way, and I'm looking around at kind of assessing those that are waiting. There were several boys with their dads. There were quite a few teenagers. And then there were other old adult men like me waiting for my turn. As I sat there, I looked around because I still didn't know how much the barber was going to charge me. I could not find a sign. I thought, well, customarily at this time, kids would have been $5. A senior's $6, and a regular haircut $7. And I just was sure that I had what I needed, but I couldn't see anything. Well, we waited, and as the barbers were busy, patrons went up and they took their turn. There were no reservations, no appointments. This was first come, first served, so you just waited. What seemed to be a very long time, finally, from the front of the shop, Merrill shouted out, "Next!" I knew it was my turn. I stood up, and as a new college graduate, I briskly marched up to the front of the barber shop. So there I get in his chair, and as a good barber would know, wants to know all about you. And I told him I wasn't from around here, but I just graduated from college. I've got this great job. And I said, I'm going to cover a sales territory that'll go from Canada to Mexico, from Boise to Kansas City. And then I said, in the next week or so, I'm going to fly to Cleveland for training, and then go to downtown Chicago for the National Restaurant Association convention. I could just tell I was impressing him with my education and my great new job. But then as he was turning the chair around, cutting my hair, all of a sudden down the counter, to my utter shock, was a little plastic sign that said adult haircuts, $10. My mental calculator was going quickly, saying, okay, how much have I got in these pockets? And immediately I knew I was short. I was going to have to go to the piggy bank for the cash reserves that were there. Well, he finished the haircut. He was very polite. He took off the barber smock and wished me well in my new profession. And I was a little bashful, really, in some ways, because I knew I had some money I needed to pay him. And so I stepped to the side of the chair, and there was a long counter in front of the mirror that went the whole length on that south wall. And I went into each pocket. I pull out the $2 I had in each, the cash. I pull out quarters and dimes. I'm kind of counting, and I empty the other pocket. And the more I was counting, the more frustrated I became. And it dawned on me that this was, with my college-educated brain, I could not calculate. It was impossible for me to figure out how much money I had in my pockets, what I'd left there. But I knew I needed to get more, and also knew most of the silver was gone, so I was going to have to add pennies to the pile. I went back, again, I didn't say anything, but here's a pile of money. The barber went ahead, got the next person up. I walked back into sat in my couch, and over this long arm, I gingerly went down, put my hand in the bag, flipped the piggy bank around, popped off the rubber stop, and started to shake the bank. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. Pennies were falling in my cupped hand. I put them up, and then I started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, 20. I then went back over the edge again. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. More coins fell into my hand. Came back up. I'm counting 10, 20 pennies. Do it again. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, there is no way. I don't know how much money I've got. And I essentially gave up. I stood up with now my pockets full of pennies. I marched back to the front of the shop. The impressive pile of money was still there. And he was working on the next patron. And I stood there and I started emptying out. I piled the pennies on top of the other money out of both pockets. I did not calculate it. I didn't count it. I just stood there for a moment. And Merrill, this gentle barber, quietly whispered to me, "It is enough." Well, that was a great blessing, but I still had to walk back and retrieve the piggy bank. So I was still humiliated. And I made it back there, and I picked up the pink piggy bank in the torn brown lunch bag. And I'd received a good haircut, but it was time for me to go. I'd had my eyes lowered, my ears lowered. I absolutely made no eye contact with Merrill, any of the barbers, or anyone else. I made it to the front door for my escape. The impossible money counting experience. Never, never to return. Now, I am quite confident that for the next 25 years, that Merrill, until he retired at 75 as a barber in that town, he would regale his clientele with a story about the young college boy and his pink piggy bank. Shake-a, 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 shake-a. Thank you.